So there's a saying by Don Norman in his book, The Design of Everything. So he said the sign of a good product is not only how well it works, but how easy it is to come back from an error situation.
Mm.
So how does Zomato take care of these things? Like for example, a user is not so tech savvy. He's a 45, 50 year old. In India is pretty slow in the tech side.
Yeah.
So one reason can be that, and the other reason is basically there's no connectivity. There's data
Mm.
problem. And how does Zomato make sure that it's easier to come back from that error situation for the user?
Cool. So, one thing is we try to never leave them at a dead end.
Yeah.
So, let's say you're trying to order food and the restaurant's closing in 10 minutes, so you're in the middle of placing an order, but like they cannot take an order anymore.
Yeah.
Or they have to reject the order for some reason. We'll make sure that while you're in that experience, we say that here are other restaurants similar to this one. Please go and order from one of them.
Okay.
Or like if you're looking at a gold restaurant, we'll say here are more gold restaurants for you.
Yeah.
So we'll always make sure that they have options and they have a new place to go.
Yeah.
We also try to make sure that our error states and our error messages have useful copy and that they tell you, this is why something happened or here's what you can do next.
Okay.
When it comes to Wi-Fi and data connectivity, I don't know if you've seen, we have some playful messages and like illustrations saying, like no Wi-Fi right now, try again kind of thing.
Yeah.
So we try to keep those kinds of situations amusing,
Okay.
just because we want them to also have a laugh and then see how they can fix that on their end,
Yeah.
and then continue with our experience.
These things also give like a human feel to the
Yeah,
product.
yeah. One app, for example, Zeppelin,
Yeah.
when you use it, they have amazing copy.
Amazing, yeah.
They're always saying things like tickling our back end and like, here's what's happening with our servers. And it's like amusing and it's fun, like when you're using it.
Yeah.
So I think we try to do something similar in these
Okay.
cases.
So the typography and the iconography of the product is really well. I've heard a lot of appreciation around myself in the design community that I'm in Mumbai. What is the process and inspiration behind the typography of the new version of Zomato? Because it's a lot different,
Yeah.
and as I'm seeing, the typography is growing a little bold around. The Apple new design has all typography in bold,
Yeah.
and the Zomato has it in bold.
Yeah.
So what is the inspiration around these things?
So one thing is we do follow Apple guidelines. So like we see that the page header with Apple has become bold now, so we incorporate those things. I think earlier our app had SF UI, which is a little more standard and neutral. We wanted to make it a little more playful, a little more curved. We wanted the app to look a little more modern and sophisticated.
Yeah.
So we actually went with Avenir next for this new app.
Amazing.
I think it does kind of have that classy feel now. I think readability is also like it's good, which we need. We also localize our app to many languages, so it has to be able to support localization to Spanish and Czech and stuff like that. And I think also with the letter forms that Avenir Next has, the gap between the spacing within a letter and between letters is also a little bit more open than SFUI. So we felt that that was also nice. So those were some of the reasons we went with Avenir Next. Definitely we look at trends of what's happening in the market, what fonts are other people using, or what are other apps also using. And we're currently redesigning the website. So we're looking at what are the fonts that other web companies use today, what is readable, what also stands out and feels playful. So Montserrat is one font we're looking at for the web now. So continuing with that rounded type of image, yeah.
So, isn't it like you need to follow the same font styles on the web and the app to maintain the brand guideline?
You should follow something a little similar. They should have some companionship. But I think, for example, Avenir Next on web is a little hard to read. The font is a little bit more, I guess, a little more compact when it comes to web, even when you increase font sizes. So we wanted something a little more like wide, but still circular, so it has that match with Avenir Next. But that's, I think, something that you can keep it similar, but it doesn't have to be the same font. It should give you the same kind of feel that they're the same family of products.
So the body font can vary. But the
Yeah.
heading font probably
Yeah.
should.
We'll try to keep that similar so it feels like.
Be the same. Lavender is also a Apple font, I guess,
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think it might be.
because I've seen only in Macs. So I thought it's an Apple font. It's a great font. I've used it,
Yeah.
and it's a paid font. So, is there a font you would suggest to people like me from a startup who don't believe in spending in fonts
Yeah.
and design
Yeah.
particulars?
So are you looking at web or app? What do you
I have never actually thought about separating both things.
I
So,
see.
and it's an interesting insight for me also that
Yeah.
okay, this is what
Yeah.
happens. So let's say website, because
Hmm.
I'm designing more of websites.
Cool. So one thing is that there's a lot of different browsers. So one thing, especially in HTML, that you do is you default to the system font as the worst case. So for Mac, it'll be SFUI. For Chrome, it'll be Roboto,
Okay.
based on the platform, because those companies decide. On top of that, it's good to try one or two custom fonts, not too much, because the load time of the page will also go up. So for your headers and like bigger font typefaces, you might want to try a unique, like characteristic font.
Okay.
But if you look at like the body text,
Yeah.
you might want to go with something a little more standard, like Open Sans or Proxima Nova or
Easy to read.
Arial, maybe. Arial, for example, opens on any website irrespective of device and browser. So Arial is very reliable if you want that.
So is it fair to say that Zomato is pro iOS than pro Android?
I think we definitely tend to
In terms of design,
we design for iOS first,
okay.
but then we definitely sit with our Android team and redo a lot of screens just to meet the Android usability guidelines. Um, yeah, that's how
So
we
as a
do it.
designer,
Yeah,
which platform like do you prefer? Like both the platforms have segment areas differently done,
yeah,
and they have the back button is a different issue
yeah.
altogether. The both the devices. So which is your preferred device?
I I have used Apple devices the whole time, so iOS for me, I think.
Okay.
I do play with an Android phone once in a while just to be accustomed to the way it works.
Okay.
Um, I think it's a great challenge to be able to design well for Android because of the amount of devices and screen resolutions that you have.
Yeah.
So we try to pay more attention to those intricacies with Android. With iOS, I mean, Apple also makes it a little more systematic.
Yeah.
So I think designing becomes a little less effort with Apple, but a little more challenging and like exciting with Android.
Yeah.
Um, so
Maybe it's because Apple has all the devices made in house.
yeah,
Like
exactly.
1x, 2x, 3x, and
That you're done.
yeah, you're done. Android has like DPI and
Yeah.
all the because they have like different manufacturers in
Yeah.
the industry for that.
But they also, I think, automate things really nicely because of the diversification of devices.
Yeah.
So, like splash screens for iOS, you'll do 8 or 10 splash screens and it's good to go. For Android, you will actually do a vector with a gradient that's programmed because of how many devices will have it.
Now that you're talking about typography, let's get to iconography and the color scheme. There are different colors that we see in the app. So like Book a Table has a different color, and then Tomato Gold has a different Treats has a different color,
Yeah.
and still the app doesn't look like okay, this is out of place.
Hmm.
So how do you decide on this color scheme?
Got
Is my
it.
first question.
Yeah.
And what about the iconography? Like I've seen Zomato invest a lot into the iconography in terms of resources, I guess, because it's very refinedly and finely made,
Hmm.
and I've heard a lot of appreciation about it.
Yeah.
And I personally also like it a lot. So how does Zomato take care of that?
Yeah, sure. So with this new UI, so one thing you have to understand is the Zomato's logo is red. And a lot of times red as a color in most cultures is seen as like a violation or like a cancel or like stop. So one thing we wanted to move away from was associating the red color with a lot of like buttons and stuff. So what we decided is let the brand stay red, but let anything that's a confirmation or an action be green or secondary black. And red we'll use just for like canceling or negative actions on the app, similar to how users kind of perceive things. And when we started designing these buttons and stuff, so like Zomato Gold versus book versus order, even though they are different colors, we kept our gradients on the buttons similar.
Yeah.
We mixed and matched colors that we felt would not be too out of the family. And we stuck to the base red, green, and black for all the actions.
Okay.
I think the primary color difference is just to get you into that experience and make you feel like you're in a gold flow right now.
Yeah.
But I'm glad to hear that it still feels like part of the same family. So we're always trying to like go back and do a sanity check on those things.
Gold does seem a very premium.
Yeah.
When you go through it.
Yeah, I think that gold gradient, they spent a lot of
Yeah.
time on that.
And I always look at it. Okay, I need to get the color codes of this thing.
Yeah.
Figuring out gold color
It's a very
is a
tricky, because it
task.
has to look shiny, but it's
Yeah.
also on a digital device. So yeah.
And gold in real is like yellow, but it's not the yellow color on the.
Yeah, you cannot use that. Then it'll look really bad. And then when it comes to icons, all of us kind of do basic icons when we need, but we usually have one very talented visual designer on the team that's making a lot of those colored icons. So if you've seen the cuisine icons that we have and stuff, those were done by one of our very talented colleagues. And now we're moving more towards like bright colors on the icons, a little less complicated line forms and shapes, and a little more like exaggerated or abstracted out cuisines and icons and stuff. We also have some with like the tongue sticking out if you haven't finished placing your order, stuff like that. So it's important also to balance that with the luxurious feel of gold and stuff. So we are always kind of playing with those two sides.
That's interesting. So you said there were 4 designers on board.
Five.
Five designers, right? Including developer plus designer.
Yeah.
All rounder.
Yeah.
So and there are multiple platforms. So is a platform, is the person designated ki you have to design for this, you have to design for iOS, you design for Android. Although the design format layouting might be same, but as I said, like the devices have different functionalities and functional offerings, you can say. So is there a particular person for like a particular owner for every platform?
So yeah, so what we do is actually we design. So let's take the consumer app. We actually design for iOS first, but of the 2 designers we have, one of them becomes more of like the Android lead, and one becomes more of the iOS lead. So they generate assets for both teams. They change the screens for the Android app when necessary. So we do have that distinction. So 2 of us kind of work more on the consumer side. 2 of us work a little more the enterprise side, but now we're also working on the consumer website. But a lot of enterprise work is on web anyway. So we try to follow the best practices of web, but try to kind of modify things for consumer versus enterprise like we spoke about earlier. So yeah, we are kind of actually differentiated by platform.
You are for iOS.
I'm for the Zomato for Business app, I'm doing iOS and web. And then the desktop web, I'm doing web. So now that our team is also kind of small, we're all doing different things. Yeah. Which is good practice for us also, but it takes a little time when you've done 6 months of iOS design to move to web, because suddenly you have like X and Y space to fill. So that takes like a few weeks to get used to.
I personally feel the desktop is a more difficult platform to devise because
it's a lot more of empty space.
You have to take care of the white spaces and place it properly so it doesn't really look empty.
Yeah.
And it's uniform to the website. So talking about the advertisements on Zomato, how do you make sure that the advertisements on Zomato have good return on investment for the advertiser, which in this case will be the restaurant or the merchant?
Yeah. So one thing is we're always checking ROI, return on investment. We have a sales representative that works with every advertiser, and they're constantly keeping them in the loop about how is your ad doing, what can we do better, can we change the image or the text. So ROI is something that we're always making sure that the client knows and that we are also thinking of as healthy. One thing that we try to do now is make our ads a little more fluid. So what I mean by that is we don't keep a specific slot-based system, which we used to have. So advertisers would say, I want slot 1 in this category and like this is what I'll pay for. Now it's moved more to a click-based system. And this is one of those like growth things that we've been trying to do over time. And so what that lets us do is, like, as an advertiser, we'll give you these many clicks, but we'll make sure that we put the ad in the right places and at the right time so that you get those clicks from relevant users. And then the second part of that is the relevant users part. So we also have a machine learning system and a team that's working on how can we show just the most relevant ads to you. So if you like Chinese, we'll show you Chinese restaurants more than anything else. It's helpful for the restaurant because you are a more engaged user. And it's helpful for you because you actually appreciate the ad if you click on it. So that's kind of how we are working on that system, both from a customer standpoint and a merchant standpoint. We also have a Zomato for Business dashboard that tells the restaurant how many clicks they've gotten so far, what kind of users have visited their page, and things like that, and what they can do differently next time, when they should renew their ads, things like that. So.
Okay, so Zomato has a lot of data that goes on it. There's a lot of there's so many restaurants, there's so many even ads,
Yeah.
and then they're adding features like Zomato Gold and Treats, and there's a lot on the app. So in relation to that, how do you avoid a product bloat? And if you enter a bloated product, if your product enters a bloat, how do you get out of it?
Yeah. So I think product bloat happens when you want to try new things, but maybe you don't need to release it to the whole market. Maybe you need to release it to a subset and see how it goes. And if the reception is high, you find good ways of incorporating it into the product that don't feel like you just kind of dumped them on the page. So that's one thing we do, is that we'll do hygiene checks. So let's say that the restaurant page has gold and treats and order online and book a table. We'll make sure that these complex cases still don't like mess up the user experience. So we'll go back and revisit pages or redesign pages if we need. We also sometimes, look at data. We see, how engaged our users with a certain feature. Either that means that the feature is not useful or it's not designed well for them. So we'll go back and revisit existing features and make them better. And then other times, we'll just experiment with something. We won't release it to everyone. We'll do an A/B test. We'll see what happens. And by mistake, if we remove a feature that people really liked, sometimes we do that as an experiment, but sometimes we do it because we think it's not being used. But then we get feedback in terms of email and stuff saying that, hey, please bring this back. I really use it a lot. And then finally, since we're in a bunch of countries, I think over 18 or 20, different countries sometimes have different use cases. So in the Czech Republic, we have something called daily menus, where every day the menu changes at the restaurant and people just only care about that. So sometimes we have features that are market specific. And that also reduces bloat, because then only that targeted user group sees that set of features.
Yes.
So I think those are some things.
So talking about releasing design updates, okay, Snapchat recently released a design update, and it was criticized a lot by the users, not only critics but also users, that this is not what we want. And looking at that scenario, how long should a design leader wait to take back the design to the previous design? How long should he or she give to the user? Probably sometime it happens that user is still getting used to it, and initially they don't like it, and probably, but you had a vision. So how long should the design leader wait to be sure about taking it back?
Yeah, so I think every company or every product has some core goals that they want users to meet, right? And that's also why people open the app, because on Snapchat I want to share a story, or I want to post an update. So I think if the design leadership releases something and then they see that the core user goals are not being met, so either there's drop off or the user is not able to discover the feature, that's a time to say, let's reevaluate what we did. It doesn't mean you go back to what you had before, but maybe it means you have to make it more easy to find, or there are some buttons in the flow that are confusing, or the user doesn't know where to tap next. So I think then you have to start thinking, what can we change again? So I think data will help with that. And also feedback emails from users and stuff will teach you kind of how difficult they're finding things. I think especially when you're releasing major updates, and a lot of times Zomato has also released a lot of UI updates.
Yeah.
It's good to test some of these big features and flows, which are your core product, on a smaller subset. So like A/B test before you go live to everyone, and also keep your core functionality like the restaurant page, the search functionality, the location selection. Keep those front and center so that they're in plain sight all the time.
Okay.
And that will definitely make sure that the user is not, getting lost in doing the most obvious things they want to complete on your app.
Okay.
So I think those are maybe two ways to go about it, before and after.
So, so to put it in, what I think is you need to be sure about the changes that you're pushing. These
Yeah.
are the steps like A/B testing.
Yeah.
Small subset
Minimize your risk, essentially.
Okay, so talking about the redesign of the snaps of the Zomato app,
Yeah.
what has been the response for that design from the consumers based on the data?
Yeah. So anecdotally, people have been very excited about it. It's a new, fresh design. It doesn't look the way it used to. People are able to find new things, also discover new things. Our images are bigger and more colorful and more engaging. So I think overall, it's been a positive response. I think in the beginning, as with any big update, you do get a lot of noise, good and bad. It's up to you to kind of filter out the feedback from that and not panic too quick and say like, oh no, like what did we do? Because there will always be some resistance to change and some reaction to change. So I think part of it is able to take that into stride and say like, we're confident. We did our user testing. We did our A/B testing also. We put this in front of business teams and app teams and people, our friends and family, and the reception was good and people were able to use the things we wanted them to use. So it's up to us to also have that confidence when we go out with something like this, but then have the sensitivity to say like, okay, cool, like this is something people are not getting, or this is something that we tested, but a different audience is not using it the way we thought. So like, let's go back and revisit. But now it's more about incremental changes, looking at metrics over time and seeing are things actually going up or going down. So now it's more of tweaking, I think, and adding like any new features that we want to promote.
All right. So, as a designer and especially a design lead
Yeah.
at a company at this scale, what vision do you have for Zomato?
So I think one thing is deliver great food to people, and also help restaurants grow. I think one thing our co-founder has always said is we should be the Google of food.
Yeah.
So that's something we, I think, aspire to. We also want to be environmentally conscious, not have waste when we when you order food. We want to make sure we're pushing the boundaries of the designs that we create. If you go on sites like Dribble and Behance, you get a lot of inspiration. And part of our goal is how can we use that inspiration and match the abilities of the app and of the company to deliver the best thing for our users. One kind of side goal we have as a team is, how do we become number one on the App Store, for example, from a design perspective. Like that would be very rewarding for us. And yeah, I think it's about getting good food to people when they need it, and making the experience delightful along the way, making you want to open the app and use it because it's helping you or it's helping your family. And trying to see how we can be there to like guide you in that process as best as we can, either through tech or operations or design or whatever it is.
It's a different feeling when a consumer or user gets a task just because of you.
Yeah.
It was great speaking to you.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us again.
Thank you so much.
And hope to see you again.
Yeah. Thanks.